Are they too, did you like those pancakes? Are they cooked to your satisfaction? Tim, what are you doing? I'm like,
what a difference. 2.53 seconds on the first shot, outstanding, and your shots are dead on target.
You know, if President Trump's position is to do away with ATF, then so be it. I 110% support whatever he wants to do.
Dan, man, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, and I'm in a weird location here. I'm out in the shop because I got some stuff to do. I got all kinds of stuff going on out here. I was thinking about it. And I was walking out, I was out working in the yard because I was getting ready for doing this and working with the trees like that. And I got underneath the avocado tree, and that hit me right in the head. I'm like, okay, I can't have that. So I picked that one. I got about 3 steps later, and pow, another one hit me in the head. So I picked them because they're small, but I'm like, good night. When they're green like that, there's probably 300 of them on a tree. It's like a 14-foot tree. But when they're green like that, they're like rocks, man. And they conk you in the head. It's like, holy smoke, dude.
I have one of those trees in my yard too. You need to wear a hard hat when you're under those.
Oh, I'm telling you, you need a motorcycle helmet or something. I got a lot of work to do out there. We're going to we're buying a fig tree tomorrow, a dwarf tree. We're going to put that in. We got a ton of fruit trees on this property, so nice. I got a bunch of work to do. And then I was out here last night pulling the handle. I was doing the 2A thing. I was pulling the handle, cranking out 9 mil. So beautiful. What the heck? Is
that your favorite caliber?
If you're gonna do it, right? Well, you know what I love about 9mm?
What's that?
It's cheap and I can shoot a lot. That's it.
I'm still a 45 guy.
Yeah, me too. But nevertheless, I go to the range and I shoot. But I got an optic from Aiken Optics too. We're going to talk. Don't worry, we're going to talk about ATF in a minute. Just hang in there. This is a 4x16 by 50mm FFP. I'm going to stick this on my 6.5 Creedmoor and get that out on our property out there in Arizona. I may go out to Yuma first and go to the Adair range, see if I can ring the bell at 800 yards with it. We'll see. Every time I shoot, Dan, I've been shooting a long time. Every time I shoot, I hit something. Man, I want to have a by church. I hit something every stinking time. I haven't been shotgunning in a while. I was at the P2K range yesterday, and I mentioned to Susan, one of the people that works there. I said, I'm going to come out here and shoot clays more. She said, oh, good, you'll do well. I said, I haven't picked up a shotgun in about 2 years. But I guarantee you I'm going to break every one of those clays every time. And she said, really? I said, yeah, most of them on the ground probably. But the point is they'll break. I'll get a couple of them in the air. The rest of them will be on the ground.
You shoot 12 gauge?
I do. Yeah, well, 12. And then I've got years ago, I bought an L.C. Smith double, a little 16 gauge L.C. Smith double. I love that thing. And it's just, when I picked it up, I went out and a buddy of mine had a clay thrower and we just threw a bunch of clays. I'm just knocking them down right and left. And I went and took it dove hunting, which is in California, if you go dove hunting, you bring armor because every idiot in the world goes dove hunting and they don't know what they're doing. So I don't do it anymore. I'll hunt on our property out there in the White Mountains. I don't even want to be around dove hunting and with the cattle thing because those folks don't pay attention. But I did go out there and I just limited out in no time, which is not very many. It's 10, right? And then, but it's a great little shotgun. I really like that for upland game, kind of neat. So yeah, but I haven't shot anything that flies, even just clays, in about a year and a half. I've been so busy. So I'll get out there, probably won't know, what do you do? But I got to knock the rust off basically. We'll get going again.
No, I get it. I have a doctor buddy down in Sarasota who shoots 28 gauge, and I had a case of 28 gauge shells that I had no need for. So I gave them to him. He shoots clay pigeons with that gauge, which is unusual.
Yeah, it's very unusual. I see a lot of 20s. I see 12s. I don't see too many 16s. I don't see too many. And the other calibers are unusual. You're right. That's why I've got this mech grabber right here for 12 gauge, and I've got a loader on the other side of the shop. You can't see that I do 20 and 16 on. Because at this point, the ammunition costs are stupid. It's.
Oh, I know.
And besides,
really,
I like
hobbies,
anyway.
It pays for itself.
It does. Well, it does and it doesn't. one of the things I've discovered is because I load a lot of ammo, I just shoot more. So it costs me the same. It's not like I'm burning less money. But I'm getting more time to shoot. So that's the important part. Otherwise, you're shooting less and it's costing you more. So I guess in that sense, yeah, it does. It pays for itself.
As long as
Well,
you're
listen,
shooting.
yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, listen, Trump got elected. I mean, he's now
Fantastic.
appointing people or trying to. I'm not real happy with the Pam Bondi thing for AG. I would have preferred Mike Gates, or Matt Gates rather, but because Pam Bondi's not strong in the Second Amendment so far. I mean, she's been pro red flag laws and like that, so I'm not thrilled about that. But I do know, I'm going to tell you now, my friend, what I would like to do with the ATF, which is completely unrealistic, but it's what I would like to do with it. I would like Trump to appoint me as ATF director and allow me to go in on Monday morning. I'll even pay for my own travel. I'll pay my own expenses. Walk in the building on Monday morning, fire everyone, delete all of the regulations, and by about noon for lunch, walk out of the building, close the door and lock it. And when I get back from lunch at about 2, meet with a commercial real estate agent and put the building up for sale. And then start a franchise of convenience stores around the country called Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. I don't. That's what I'd like to do.
Somebody's
But I
going
have
to
a
have your
feeling you
name
have
turned in.
some more realistic ideas than that one. But there you
Somebody's
go.
going to turn your name into the nominating committee within the hour. I guarantee you. Having
I'm
heard,
hoping. I'm hoping. I want the job. I'll do this, Mr. President. I will do the job for free. I'll pay for my own travel. And I think I can find 5 volunteers to go with me, maybe more. What
I hear
should?
you.
But I mean, realistically, though, Dan, you were there for a long time and you've been battling with them forever. What is realistic? What can we? First of all, what should be done in your estimation? Because you know that place inside and out and what they do. And what do you think is realistically possible to do?
Well, the first thing we need to get out of the way is everybody, all your listeners, everybody, repeat after me. Disband ATF. Now say ATF sucks. Okay, get it out of your
Disband
system.
ATF. ATF sucks. That's the end of the
Okay,
show. That's it.
because
That's all it needed to be said.
usually that's about every other comment after every time I'm on the show. But here's the thing, guys, it's not going to happen. It'll never happen. They tried that in 1981 during Reagan or something like that. It was in the early 80s. It was before I came on ATF in 88. And it went so far as they sent out reduction in force letters to a lot of the agents or all the agents. I don't know how it went. Again, it was before my day. And a lot of these guys jumped ship. They went to U.S. Customs, Secret Service, what have you. It's like, well, if they're going to fire me, then I'm going to get a job with somebody else. And then, of course, it never happened because at the end of the day, the pro Second Amendment groups were the ones that nixed it and said, no, we don't want to get rid of ATF because if you do, who's going to enforce the gun laws? The gun laws aren't going to go away, and it'll be the FBI. And they thought, wow, they're 5 times bigger, 5 times the budget. It's going to even be worse. So they nixed the whole idea and they left ATF alone. My personal opinion, you're never going to see ATF get disbanded. If
Well,
that's what
I'll tell you
President,
what. I'll tell you another reason I don't think they're going to get disbanded. I would like to see it happen, but you bring up a valid point that who's going to fill the vacuum if they're gone. But one other reason is I was curious before we got on, and I went on X and I went to Grok AI and I just asked it, when was ATF established and why? And this is part of the answer I got, which I found fascinating because I did not know this. So if you're watching, this might be informative. I'm just reading off of here now. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, was officially established as an independent bureau within the Treasury Department on July 1, 1972. This restructuring was facilitated by Treasury Department Order 221, which transferred the responsibilities of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division of the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, to the new Bureau. The establishment of the ATF was largely driven by the need to consolidate and strengthen federal law enforcement efforts concerning alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives, which had been scattered among various agencies since the early 20th century. Now, here's two more things. Historical roots. The origins of the ATF can be traced back to 1886 with the formation of the again, we're getting back to that, the Revenue Laboratory within the Bureau of Internal Revenue, now the IRS. Its early responsibilities were primarily focused on collecting taxes on spirits and tobacco products. And then during Prohibition, the agency's history also includes its role during Prohibition, where it was involved in enforcing the Volstead Act. After Prohibition's repeal in 1933, the unit evolved into the Alcohol Tax Unit, ATU, of the IRS. So as I read this, unless Grok is completely whacked, Dan, the whole reason for it in the first place was taxes to collect revenue.
Correct.
You've mentioned before that the whole reason they talk about tracing is not because it actually solves crimes, but because it allows them to go to Congress and get more money. So I submit to you that the other reason why it will never go away is because if it goes away, the tax money that it collects goes away too. And do you feel like that's even a thing?
Well, the tax money's still going to be collected. Even if you don't have an ATF, the federal government, I mean, ATF's just one branch of the federal government, and the federal government levies that tax for NFA firearms. They levy the excise taxes on guns in general. They're not going to lose that revenue. They're just going to collect it without an ATF if they're stopped being.
So the revenue never stops being paid by us. It's just going to shift around to somebody else. Somebody else is going to get it. So even if we kill this thing, we're still paying. What you're saying.
Yeah, the tax on a bottle of liquor is not going to go away, or the tax on a pack of cigarettes. Death and taxes are the two things that'll never stop. So
that's the truth.
If President Trump's position is to do away with ATF, then so be it. I 110% support whatever he wants to do. But whomever he picks to run that agency, if he keeps it, let it go forward, actually knowing what it's doing, number one, because one of the biggest problems with ATF is that the employees there, in a big way, don't really know what they're doing. Every time we teach a seminar, I ask when we first start, how many people here have dealt with ATF personnel? And a bunch of hands go up. And then I ask, okay, how many answers do you get if you ask 10 different ATF people the same gun question? And then you get, 10, 11, jokingly 12.
Right, 11.
Whatever. And I've explained that before on your show because of the way they were trained or not trained, and it's pretty much not trained as much as they should. So let them go forward knowing what they're doing. The training needs to be kicked into high gear. They need to go forward only telling the truth when they testify, because they've been fed a line by the Firearm Technology Division, and it's just been blindly following what the current administration says to do. All of a sudden braces are stocks, FRTs are machine guns, bump stocks are all of a sudden machine guns. No, they're not. Go forth telling the truth and stay within your authority. Congress gave ATF a certain authority. Stay within it. Don't try to increase your own authority. It's ridiculous. There are a bunch of bullet points that I would change if I was running that outfit.
Well, lay them on us, because I want to know. I want to see if they won't. I realize people will want me to get appointed just because of what I said, but that ain't real. But you, brother, you might get the job if you're not careful.
If President Trump calls me and offers me the job, I will humbly and honorably take it. I don't see that happening, but if he did.
No, but it would be a great day, and I would buy the first round would be on me. I'd fly to Florida to congratulate you. We'll go get dinner and a drink.
Well, if it happens, I'll hold you to that.
Okay,
the
please
points
do.
that I would suggest for whomever gets it is, number one, as in ATF's original position, stop treating solvent traps as silencers. unless there's actual evidence of intent to use it to diminish the report of a firearm. When they first came out, ATF said, no, these are not silencers. And then all of a sudden now they're saying, yes, they are. Well, what changed? The only thing that changed was ATF's attitude because they're told what to do by an anti-gun administration.
Mm.
Next, stop treating FRTs as machine guns. Same thing. They don't satisfy the definition. I don't care whether you like them or not. Next thing, stop treating gun parts as receivers if they don't satisfy the definition. AR lowers, FAL uppers, et cetera, et cetera. They are not firearm frames or receivers according to the definition, whether you like them or not. Abandon the false narrative about buy, build, shoot kits, the polymer 80 type kits. Those
Yeah.
are not firearms. Look at the definition. They don't satisfy it. Uh, Stop pretending that the occasional sale to enhance one's collection is dealing without a license. This most recent thing they've dreamed up.
Yeah.
It says right in the books, you can make occasional sales to enhance your collection. So all of a sudden, overnight, they changed their mind. Now, if you sell one gun, you're a dealer without a license. Yeah, I don't think so. Um, Another thing, stop the weaponization of the agency. They need to get back to stopping violent crime and be anti-crime, not anti-gun ownership. They need to stop aiming their efforts toward law-abiding citizens. Another thing I would do, stop the requirements for law letters by SOT dealers. These are your FFLs, which have the extra license to manufacture and or deal NFA firearms. I mean, once you go through the vetting process to become one of those folks, you then have to get a Mother May I letter from ATF to go get a machine gun to hold it in your inventory so you can do
Every
a
time.
demonstration.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, support the firearm industry rather than persecuting it. Lose this
Well,
arbitrary.
one great example of that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, is that
No, go ahead.
is this zero tolerance crap that they've been ordered to go do and visit upon gun stores. I mean, you might have an FFL that's just doing everything right, and they've been doing everything right for 20, 30 years. They make one mistake, and ATF falls on them like a ton of bricks. That's got to stop. I mean, there's got to be some understanding. Obviously, there are in every group of people, there are people who are doing nefarious things and things that harm society and so on, and I get that. But if you got a gun store or FFL dealer that's obviously not attempting to do criminal things, then at some point or other, I think harming the good people for the purpose of harming the good people is not a benefit to society. We need to get back to the point, as you say, where they're punishing criminals and leaving the good people alone, and not destroying someone's career, or destroying their business because they made an honest mistake. That's got to stop.
Fully agree. I've seen them do that to so many people over the last couple of years. I know a federal air marshal, career air marshal, who was convicted because he ordered some fuel filters online that never even arrived at his house. I know a career Navy seaman who is sitting in prison right now because he was selling parts kits that had saw cut parts in them that ATF called receivers and therefore firearms, which don't satisfy the definition in the federal law. And yet this young man is sitting in prison for what?
Yeah, and
Anyway,
unfortunately, that's not every day, but I mean it happens a lot, and
well,
and
just two examples. Yeah.
and that's two examples. It's an abuse of power on the part of the government. The other thing I'd like to see, it's probably not within the power of the president to do. It's more Congress, I suspect. I'd like to see the NFA repealed because I think it's a pointless law. I mean, and I know you and I have talked about this over dinner. We've talked about it over a drink. We've talked about it at your class. We've talked about it on my show, and I know you agree with that. It's a pointless law at this juncture. It doesn't make any sense to even have it. The NFA should go away. In which case, the solvent trap issue goes away because a suppressor you should be able to go down and buy a suppressor just like you buy any other accessory for your firearm. And for crying out loud, I mean, I wear hearing aids because of a lifetime of hunting and shooting. And I don't want that visited upon young people. If they could hunt with a suppressed rifle, why not do that? I mean, it doesn't eliminate the sound completely, but it certainly will damage your hearing less than what I did in my life or what you did in yours. So it's astounding to me that we're still regulating those things. There's no reason to do it. I'd like to see that change. I don't, like I said, I don't know if that's in the power of the president to do that.
Well, to get rid of the NFA would take an act of Congress because they enacted the National Firearms Act and they would have to be the ones to get rid of it. But if we get a majority, in government thinking our way, that could be done. Same way we got it, they got it done 90 years ago when the NFA took effect. But yeah, silencers,
What do
we're
you,
the only country in the world that considers them a bad thing, something that needs to be
right?
regulated.
It's a good thing. It keeps the noise down, right? I mean, I got neighbors out there in Arizona. I mean, admittedly, they're 3/4 of a mile away, but I mean, nevertheless, I don't, it's peaceful, it's quiet. I'm sure if I wanted to do some shooting, I'm sure they'd prefer not to hear that sound all the time. Not that I shoot all the time, but the point is that, why not be kind to your neighbors? Why not be kind to your own hearing and everything else if you possibly can? What do you think the odds of any of this stuff actually being done are? And how permanent would these changes be if they're just done by executive fiat? The next guy that comes in office can just put us right back where we started from, can't he?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on which thing you're talking about. The ones, certain things, if you're going to change a definition or change a federal law or delete a federal law, it's going to require an act of Congress, literally. But as far as changing the direction that ATF focuses its efforts can be done overnight. If I were to walk in there as director, I would tell them on the first day, we're going to not go after things that are outside the definitions anymore. So therefore, again, solvent traps, braces, FRTs, whatnot, they don't satisfy the definition. The only reason you're persecuting them is because an anti-gun White House told you to do it. Well, that anti-gun White House isn't there anymore starting on January 20th. So I'm sure whoever's running the agency would have President Trump's support in changing those focuses. Uh, but again, ATF is operating at the pleasure of the president. If, it's a fact that President Trump during his first term went after the bump stocks. And I think what needed to be done on that issue is when he said to ATF, hey, what can we do to get rid of these things? ATF should have said, well, Mr. President, you could petition Congress to add another definition to the definition of a machine gun, and that would stick if you wanted to go that route. But just to wake up tomorrow morning and say, okay, we now think the word automatic means something different than it did yesterday, and then say, okay, now we're changing our 10-year precedent that bump stocks are not machine guns and saying they are, that's weak. And as a result, the Supreme Court threw it out a few months ago.
Well, Dan, you bring up a point that's frustrating to Americans on a whole list of subjects, not just the Second Amendment, and that is the idea of the administrative state just making up stuff and doing this end around Congress, which I think is the whole reason it was created in the first place, was to be for the executive to be able to do stuff he couldn't get through Congress. And it looks like Trump is going to take a sledgehammer to as much of that as possible. It seems to be the team he's putting together. It also seems like the Supreme Court is chipping away at that. I mean, they've had decisions against the Environmental Protection Agency and other executive agencies like that, administrative agencies, where they've said, nope, you've gone beyond the authority that was given to you by Congress. My hope is that if the Republicans will actually get on board and stop letting the Democrats appoint new judges during the lame duck session. Sorry.
No,
I mean, talk about a bunch of weaklings and pathetic individuals, these rhinos in the Senate. Good night. Don't get me started. But in any case, if he can get judges appointed, if he appoints the same kind he did the last time, I think we have a chance at putting a stop to a lot of that by reining in these agencies. I know he can rein them in by executive order, but again, that the next guy just switches it back the other direction. So it would be good to see the courts do it or Congress do it. I mean, do you think that there's a shot at getting that done? You had to deal with this for a lot longer than me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, President Trump's going to have opportunity to fill Supreme Court justice positions that come open during his term. Um, he can appoint federal judges, and federal judges are in office for life. So that would be a strong help. But those are all things outside of ATF. If you want to talk about what can be corrected inside ATF, that first number of things I mentioned, those were as far as ATF's enforcement focuses. I also have a few bullet points of things that can be done inside of ATF as far as reorganization, um, restructuring, I should call it, within ATF. Like they have a lot of needless positions. When I came on with ATF in 1988, there were roughly 2,500 agents. Guess how many there are today? 2,500 agents. 35 years later, there are the same number of agents. I mean, what law enforcement agency has the same number they had 35 years ago?
Not one I can think of.
Well, and one of the problems is during my career, you continually saw this effort to widen the base of the pyramid by assigning agents to these non-case producing positions. So you have these, when I came on, there was no such thing as a full-time dog handler, full-time SWAT guys, full-time polygraphers, etc., and full-time internal affairs investigators. And so today, out of those 2,500, I couldn't tell you the exact number, but so many of those agents don't even work cases. They're in these non-case producing uh, positions. And I think a new director could reassign a lot of those people to the field to work on violent crime. They could stop wasting resources to teach police departments that gun traces are the end all to gun crime. Um, they could stop this narrative, this false narrative about ghost guns, uh, several things. And
Yeah,
there's
do me a
also,
favor, would you? Because that's first of all, that's a huge thing. Explain the false narrative about ghost guns. That's a big deal. First, it's completely false, but coming from you, it'll make more sense than it is coming from me.
okay. Well, I don't know who came up with the word, somebody in ATF, but they
Some
call it a
idiot,
gun.
no, some idiot, I can't think of his name, legislator in California first coined it, I think. And it took off from there because it was a lefty way of redefining things. It's sort of like assault weapon, which is a made up political term, and you and I both know no such thing exists. And so there you go.
Right.
But yeah, ghost gun, I can't remember that joker's name, but if I can think of it, I'll put it up here on
Okay.
Chiron later and people will know. Anyway.
Well, first of all, if anyone who is legal to go purchase a gun is legal to make a gun, as long as it's not an NFA firearm and as long as it sets off a metal detector at an airport. You haven't violated any federal laws by making your own gun. You don't have to be licensed. So you make your own gun, conventional pistol, revolver, rifle, shotgun. Um, and the requirements to mark a firearm with a serial number or anything else is only incumbent on licensed manufacturers. Federal law says if you're a licensed manufacturer and you manufacture a gun, you will mark it with a serial number, company name, city, state, model, caliber. Okay, so if you're not a licensed manufacturer, you don't have to put any of that on the gun you just made. Um, so ghost guns, those are homemade guns, privately made firearms, PMFs, whatever you want to call them. ATF has had this narrative for years that, oh, these are evil. These are the root of all crime because they can't be traced. And I've said it many times on your show. If a police officer catches somebody who's a felon with a gun in his waistband who can't possess a gun, right? You just got him.
Yeah.
Felon, he has a gun. Do you need to trace it and see who the first original?
No, you got the guy. You
Right.
got the
All a
gun.
trace does is tell you who was the original retail purchaser and who was the original gun shop that sold it to them. Now, if you find a gun in a ditch, you can trace it, and okay, that'll help you maybe trace it back to where it came from, why is it there, what have you. But in the vast majority of gun crimes, tracing is not needed nor helpful. And not only that, you can't trace shotguns and 22 rifles made before 1968 because they don't have serial numbers. Have you ever heard ATF complain about that?
There's
Never.
no serial number. I mentioned the LC Smith, right? There's no
Right. Of
serial number on that gun. It was
course
made a
not.
bazillion years ago.
Can't be
I've got
traced, but you never heard
no
ATF complain about it.
no serial number on my M1 Garand, which, by the way, the government thinks is not a weapon of war.
Yeah, I'm thinking they thought that differently in World War II.
Yeah, I think so
General
too.
Patton
No,
thought differently about that.
yeah, he did. Right. No serial number
Anyway,
on that gun, right?
right. Well, these ghost guns, um, the pre-68 guns that don't have serial numbers, they can still be prosecuted in federal court. Modern PMFs can still be prosecuted in state court. But if you make a polymer 80 pistol with no numbers on it because you're a private individual, it can't be prosecuted in state court because only guns and ammunition which have affected interstate commerce can be prosecuted in federal court.
You said state court. I think you mean federal court. It can't
In
be
federal
prosecuted
court, they can only
because
be prosecuted in federal
unless they
court.
cross the state lines, they can't be prosecuted in
Right.
federal court,
They
right?
can still be prosecuted in state court, but ATF can't justify their budget, their existence by prosecuting everything in state court because city and county police officers could have done that. So that's the reason behind the false narrative about ghost guns and tracing, pretending that tracing is the end all, and really no, it's to get rid of guns that can't be prosecuted in federal court, namely ghost guns. If you can't prove who made it, you can't prove where it was made. Therefore, you can't prove that it affected interstate commerce by crossing a state line.
And then you can't go to Congress and ask for more money because you're not doing more prosecution. So it comes back down, as you mentioned, follow the money. Once again, it's all about the revenue. It's all about the budget. It's not about any heinous reality, it sounds like, from what you're saying. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, one of the first things I was told by a veteran agent when I came on with ATF a long time ago was the two purposes of a bureaucracy are to increase their own size and justify their existence. And you see examples of that every place.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think
yeah.
this is what Vivek. I'm going to screw his name up. I know I
Oh,
am.
I can't say
Vivek
it.
Ramaswamy or Vivek Ramaswamy. If you're which he's not watching my show. I'm kind of a
You never
also
know.
rant. But but if you are watching, I apologize for screwing up your name because I probably just did. But I think Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, which I always have to think about to say, I think that's what they want to go after with their efforts to help cut some of this stuff back, is to get rid of the nonsense. I mean, it was interesting. I was reading an article the other day. You're talking about broadening the base of the pyramid, which just means you have all these useless, nonsensical positions within ATF that are not generating anything. They're just burning money. Our federal government has all these things that have actually, they were maybe approved by Congress and they expired 40 years ago, and we're still funding them. And there are still people sitting around doing this, not even doing anything, but they're collecting a check. I read the other day that like 70% or better of the federal employees don't even show up to work anymore. And I thought, what are we paying them for? It doesn't. To some degree, I can understand, working remotely for certain things, but I mean, if 70 or 80% are not showing up to work, there's a lot of them that aren't doing anything. I mean, we need to just cut the fat basically
Well,
and
as a
trim that down.
supervisor, you can tell if a guy's doing his job because he's turning in paperwork, he's turning in reports, he's turning in
Well, in
all.
today's world, you can just look on a computer and see if he's working,
Well, that's true.
right?
No, there's a lot of professional jealousy in not only in the government, but in corporate America, where if I have to come in every day, then you have to come in every day. And they're resistant to the whole teleworking remotely thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you
there are
think the
other,
odds of? What do you think the odds of Trump actually and hit Trump and company? Okay, one thing I think is very interesting before I ask you that question is I was talking to Rick Travis about this, and he's kind of in the know about how the government works more than I do as far as politically. And one of the things he was saying is that there is some sort of a government agency. Forgive me, I don't know the name of it. Okay, so because I'm a working stiff who owns a training company, so I'm not a
me
politician, nor
too.
do I ever. Yeah, I know. That's one of the things I love about you, brother. Okay, I'm an actual guy who works like you. I'm not a government dude, and I don't, so I don't understand the workings of it. But anyway, he was indicating that there's some sort of government federal agency that works on the transition from one presidential administration to the next, and that government agency is actually falls under the control of the current administration. So if you have a current administration that is in any way antagonistic toward the new administration, because they control that and all the people that work there and everything else, they can really throw monkey wrenches in the works for the administration that's incoming. And that apparently is what happened in a lot of ways to President Trump the first time around. So this time around, what Rick was telling me is they did a lot of fundraising, knowing this was going to happen, and they're doing this whole transition thing in-house. And as a result, we're not getting leaks out of Mar-a-Lago. We're not getting, negative reports from this or that. We're finding out on social media and the news precisely what the Trump team wants us to find out and pretty much nothing else. And then people are making stuff up. Well, I heard that because they can't get any information. I think that's kind of interesting. That's very interesting to me. I'm not so sure there should be a government agency working for a previous administration that is transitioning into the new administration. There's too much opportunity for hate and vitriol and discontent and sabotage involved in that. It ought to be done differently. So there's another cost-cutting venture. I mean, I'd rather pay a private company because then you can hold their feet to the fire and say, this is what you do, or have the incoming administration do that. So there's an example, I guess, of just another way that government goes sideways and blows money they shouldn't blow, and then uses it as some sort of a weapon.
I think one of the benefits that President Trump has is the fact that there was a separation between his first and second term. He's had 4 years to reflect on what they did to him the first time and how these gears work. And so he has had 4 years of prep time to stave off some of the garbage that was thrown in his path the first time. So yeah, hopefully he has his own team working on his ability to fill his new cabinet and keep the present administration from trying to jinx it for him.
So what do you think the odds are? I mean, you listed some great things that are realistic, I think, that could be done. I mean, my plan to go in and shut the door and sell the building and fire everybody would be wonderful, and I think the country would throw a party and, like that, but I don't think it's realistic by any stretch of the imagination, unfortunately. And certainly anything that's done just by executive order can be undone by the next guy. We see that every time. What do you think the odds are, even the executive order stuff, what do you think the odds are of Trump pulling this off with ATF and if nothing else, jerking them back into compliance with what they're supposed to be doing and away from what they're not supposed to be doing, and at the same time, hopefully, with Ramaswamy, which I have to say very slowly, and Elon getting in there, and the rest of their team, perhaps getting rid of that wide base of the pyramid and either getting rid of people or moving people into positions that actually accomplish something. What do you think the odds are?
I think the odds are good. If President Trump chooses a new ATF director who is familiar with the way ATF works, has the skill set to fix the ideas, actually has a game plan, and gives them somewhat of a free hand to do it as long as he doesn't put the president in a bad position in some way. I think major things can be done in short order. I think the new director needs to walk in there and right off the bat start at the top and say, why are you in this position? Why should I not transfer you out of it? Why should I not eliminate this position and put you, instead of just walking around in a suit and having meetings all day, put you back in the field working cases and catching bad guys? Um, that put an end to this. Um, how nobody really knows what's ATF's position on this and what's ATF. I'll never forget. I went to one of the forensic organization's annual conventions a couple of years ago, and the head of firearm technology for ATF was there. I sat in on his seminar on how the making of AR lowers with, mixing polymers together or 3D printing or whatever. And I asked a question. I said, okay, with AR lowers, there are four things you cannot do to it before it changes from an 80%er to now it counts as a machine gun. I'm sorry, as it counts as a firearm. You can't drill the axle pin holes for the trigger pin, the hammer pin, the selector, and you can't dig out the top where you put the fire control components. I said, okay, we know what the four verboten steps are for an
So
AR.
just to clarify, when you say you can't do those things, because if you do them, then it becomes a lower,
Then it
as
becomes a
opposed
firearm in ATF's
as
position.
opposed if a firearm, as opposed to just a block of aluminum or whatever.
Right.
Okay, I wanted to make
You
sure I
can do
understood where you're going.
everything but those four, and that
Okay.
hence makes an 80%er that we've been used to. So I asked this guy, tell us what the 3, 4, 5 forbidden machine processes are for a 1911 lower, an FAL upper, uh, the top 10 most common guns that somebody would want to make an 80% for. And this guy stared at me like I had, I don't know, like,
Looked
what?
at
You
you like you had
dare?
10 heads,
It's like
probably.
when you pulled the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz in the movie. And I
Yeah.
just looked at him and he said, I can't tell you that. And I said, why? It's not classified. Just tell us so we won't break the law. He goes, that's above my pay grade. I can't tell you that. So my point is, why in the world does ATF have secrets that the gun industry can't know, that the public, the gun public, can't be told for God's sake?
He couldn't tell you because he doesn't know.
Well, not
And
only
because there's
that,
no,
because
right?
that way they can't change it every other day to their whim, too. That would be one of the first things I would do. From now on, we're going to publish this. Everything we know, the public is going to know. Nothing in here is classified. This isn't the CIA.
What is the old joke? If I tell you, I got to kill you. I mean, that's not the
Yeah.
case with this stuff, right?
No, it's a case of if I tell you, then I can't throw you in jail for something you didn't know.
Right.
And that's what
Right. And then, and then I
frosty.
can, and then I can't say, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse, even though I never told you what the heck the rules were. Yeah, this
Exactly.
is the kind of stuff that absolutely needs to stop. Wow.
Yeah, I would
I'm hopeful.
form an online training program that all FFLs could take for free. Similar to the one that I teach now.
Yeah.
All you would have to do is go to ATF's website, put in your FFL number, and you could take these training modules, and there would be tests. So if you pass the test, you learned the material, and there would be no more secrets. There would be no more guesswork on how to do things right and not have them come knocking at your door. I hate
Shameless
this.
plug. You know what, Dan, you just did it. It's shameless plug time. Here we go. It's shameless plug time. If
Okay.
you want to know how federal firearms laws work, you're a cop, you're a lawyer, you're a person who testifies in court, you're just some average Joe like me or Jane, and you want to know, you can go to gunlearn.com. You can take the class online. You don't even have to show up. If you want to show up, you can show up because Dan and his crew teach these classes at police departments all over the place, and you don't have to be a cop to be there. All you have to do is pay for it, and you can show up and take the class. I have taken the class. Of course, I flunked the test. Gosh darn it, I got to do it again. I have taken the class. You can take it, and I advise you to do so, gunlearn.com. All right, one more shameless plug that pays me nothing. This is my Kill Bad Dudes hat. Let me see if I find the camera here. This is my Kill Bad Dudes hat. I know it looks stupid, and I don't even know if the print's the right way. Maybe it's backwards. Who knows? And it's looks like a Bass Pro Shop. It's not. It says Kill Bad Dudes on it. This is from Half Face Blades. So if you are a fan of Half Face Blades, first of all, if you're watching this, Andy, Miles, Brockman, my son Nick, all the crew at Half Face Blades, thank you very much for the hat. That was a gift, and I'm very grateful. I'm actually going to buy a couple more. I'll wear at SHOT Show this year. They make custom knives. They make them very well. They're paying me exactly nothing, but my son is one of their knife makers over there. And so check out Half Faced Blades. I will put a link in the description, a little free advertising for the guys over there. There you go. See? What am I doing? I'm
Excellent.
making it a commercial enterprise. What the heck is wrong with me?
Nothing. And by the way, thank you for the shameless plug. I wasn't asking for
You're
that, but I
welcome.
honestly believe that ATF could install a system like that and make what people ought to know available to them instead of
Oh, they could and they
keeping
should.
it under the shroud.
Yes, I mean, look, at Practical Defense Systems, I got 28,000 students, Stan, who take online courses from us, okay? And I'm a fairly sharp guy, but I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the block. I'm not creating rockets to go to Mars. I mean, it doesn't require, it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery to do online courses. You and I do them, you're a sharp cat, I get it. Certainly there's some people couldn't figure it out, but ATF can figure that out, and they should do it, and they should make it completely and utterly free so that firearms dealers and citizens or whatever could take that class and understand what the law is so that we don't go around breaking it, and they're not sneaking up on us. I mean, that way if we break them, it's because we chose to, not because they're sneaking up on us. And I get tired of the government trying to sneak up on me and catch me at stuff I don't even know I'm doing all the time. That's just wrong.
Well, can you imagine DEA giving out licenses to people to run pharmacies, and the guy they gave the license to never had to learn the difference between cough syrup and foot powder? I
Right.
mean,
That's
that's
a great example,
ATF.
by the way.
ATF will give you an FFL, and then they'll hand you a few pamphlets and go, hey, knock yourself out, but we're going to show up once a year, and don't make us throw you in prison because you made a mistake.
Or shut down your business, or jerk your license, or right? That's the kind of stuff
Utterly
that we got.
ridiculous.
That kind of stuff's got to stop. I hope that President Trump and his and company and JD Vance. One of the things I'll tell you right now, just and I realize we're running real long here, but JD Vance has been like an A plus rated guy by, I think, by Gun Owners of America for a while. That dude is. My understanding is, and if I'm all wet, and you're watching this, and you think I'm nuts, and I get this wrong, please correct me, okay? But I'm pretty sure that JD Vance was A plus rated by GOA and is very pro Second Amendment, and I'm very grateful to have a vice president, and to be as articulate and sharp as that guy is, and be pro Second Amendment the way he is. I think that's marvelous. I realize Trump is
Fantastic.
more pragmatic, and he's going to do what he thinks is best at the moment. He's not a Second Amendment guy the way you are, or I am, or JD Vance is. I mean, hopefully he will support it, and we won't do any more bump stock stuff, but we'll have to wait and see. Is there anything we didn't talk about that we should?
Just on the foot of what you just said,
Yeah.
I would encourage all your listeners, we are in a position that we have to appreciate how good a position we as pro Second Amendment people are in with the reelection of President Trump. I mean, imagine how it would have gone the other way. If you are not supporting a pro Second Amendment group right now, you're crazy if you don't go out and start doing it. I mean, send them $1 a month if that's all you have to afford. But everybody needs to start supporting these. I mean, National Association for Gun Rights, Gun Owners of America, NRA, I don't care, pick one,
Pick
but
one you like.
support one of
Right.
them because we need to hang on to this foothold that we have and keep it and get as strong as we can while we can.
Well, and I'll tell you, we'd be in deep trouble if Kamala, and yes, I call her Kamala because it means how bad, how mean. If Kamala had become president, we'd be in deep, deep, deep trouble.
Well,
In
you
many,
call her
many ways
Kamala.
pardon me?
You call her Kamala. That's much better than what I would have called her.
Yeah, well, I've got friends who call her other things I can't repeat on the show.
right?
So there you go. But yeah, I call her Kamala. It's a kind of a common nickname she gets from a lot of folks who are Hispanic, I think. I hear it a lot. I say it a lot. I'm not Hispanic, but my wife is, and my daughter-in-law is, and like that. But yeah, Kamala, if we dealt with her here in California, she was awful. And she did us a lot of harm in many, many respects, not just the Second Amendment, but we really dodged, I mean, no pun intended, we dodged a bullet by
We
having
did.
Trump become president and not that evil, nonsensical, brainless chick. And
And
now
the
I'm going to
way
get
we
all
did
kinds of
it,
mad people. I'm going to get hate mail now, so that's okay. Go ahead. I don't care.
uh, and the way we did it is we all came together, to my point about
Right.
coming
Right.
together and supporting Second Amendment causes. So now that we're together, let's stay together. Let's all get busy. Anybody who just rides the wave and water skis behind our success is part of the problem. Everybody needs to get involved.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. You got to get your hands dirty. You can't just sit back and watch everybody do the work for you. You got to get your hands dirty. So if you're not getting your hands dirty to fight for your constitutional rights, I'm not going to pick on you, and I'm not going to criticize you. Here's what I am going to say: learn from that and get busy. Get your hands dirty. Get involved. You don't have any money, it's fine. Volunteer your time. You don't have a lot of time, you got some money, volunteer your money. You got a little bowl,
I
volunteer
agree.
bowl, whatever it takes. But get in there and share this video, for crying out loud. If you can't do anything else, then for crying out loud, share this video so people understand what Dan's estimation of what can actually be done with ATF gets out there. Support people who are producing videos and other content that's pro Second Amendment content on whatever platform, whether that's YouTube or Rumble or X or Instagram or whatever. Subscribe to those folks, or follow them or whatever the word is, and urge other people to do the same. And then stay informed. As Sam Paredes is always saying, be armed and informed. And if you're informed, you are armed. I mean,
True.
that's my opinion, anyhow. Well, Dan, thank you so very much, brother, for coming on. You're gonna be in California again here pretty soon, aren't you? Or did you just come and I missed you?
Actually, our company just taught a seminar at San Diego PD a couple of weeks ago, and Don Ledbetter, our West Coast guy, taught that because I was
Well, and I think
helping.
when you were here, I think when he was here, I was in Arizona. I was on our place in Arizona, so I
Oh,
couldn't even
okay.
have gone if I wanted to.
Well, when that was going on, we were also doing one in Bradenton, Florida, and I was helping with that one, so I didn't make it out
Yeah.
there. We're going to be in Huntington Beach, California Police Department in March, so maybe if I can make it out for that one, we'll get together then and have lunch.
Yeah, I'll drive up. I'll drive up. Absolutely. I realize you're the big cheese now, so you're just pushing people around. You're not. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I love you, man. Stay safe, okay? Thank you very
Love
much
you
for
too,
coming
Joe.
on the show. All
Take
righty.
care, buddy.